there is me in this, and I can't lose that, because that's what makes, and everybody's blogs that same way, is that we shouldn't try to be like everybody else's. Let your own bit of yourself shine through, because that's what's going to make your blog stand out from somebody else's. And I think sort of being able to go back and tap into these other passions and interests that we have and letting those kind of seep in, it's a good idea.
That was Emily Caruso, and this is episode number 120 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the Chopped Podcast. I am your host, and this podcast is designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. My goal every week is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging, so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging, and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. So how are you doing? We're kind of getting used to this new year. It's now under our belt a little bit, and hopefully we're all feeling a little bit more in our stride with it. I know that I'm definitely feeling that way myself. I'm kind of getting into a groove and feeling confident about it all. I don't know about you, but I think sometimes January can be kind of tough, right? Maybe it's because of the end of the year. We're all so busy. It also could be that January is kind of busy too, because for health-focused food bloggers, it's a busy time. In the midst of all this busyness, I've been reading this book called You Are a Badass. It's by Jen Sincero. I think it's Sincero. Jen Sincero is her name, yes. And she's actually going to be coming on the show soon. She's got a new book coming out, so we're going to be talking with her about that in a month or two. So anyway, I've been reading her book and really enjoying it. And she has this mantra that's in there that I've been repeating to myself on a regular basis. And here it is. It's, I receive all the good life has to offer me. I'm going to repeat that. I receive all the good that life has to offer me. So I've been kind of saying that to myself often and regularly, and I write it to myself as well in my journal in the mornings. And I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of been a big part of helping me to take on a better mindset. And I think, for me, sometimes I can just easily slip into reaction mode where I'm like, reacting to the news, reacting to Facebook, reacting to comments on the site, or reacting to just, emails that come in, whatever. And I get kind of addicted to that, being in reaction mode. And I have to really kind of switch things and put myself into creation mode. And I feel like this mantra has really helped me find more moments of centeredness and peace. And it just helps me kind of move on and get back into proactive, creative mode. So it's been a great mantra for me. I hope you love it too. Okay, let's get on to today's episode, because today I'm talking with Emily Caruso. She's of the site Jelly Toast. Emily and I have been in a food video group. It was run by Denise and Lenny. I think if you remember, they're back in episode 24. If you didn't get a chance to listen, just go back and take a listen. They're great. Really supportive of food video. They're very talented, and they've run a lot of workshops and things to help people get better at doing food video. And so Emily and I were part of a small group that they had together. And let me just tell you, when Emily joined the group, she just hit the ground running, and she started doing these food videos. Her very first food video was just gorgeous. And so, of course, she started getting sponsored work and was doing a lot with her food videos. And that's why I wanted to have her on the show, not to just talk about food videos, because we've covered that before. You can go back and listen to past episodes where we talk about, even the one episode 24 where we're talking about food video with Denise and Lenny. So I was excited to talk with Emily, and our conversation sort of naturally gravitated towards creativity, especially how to get out of creative funks. Maybe it's a little bit like what I was talking about before, where, you can kind of get in this reactive mode, and then it's really hard to create from that position. And so I love some of the advice that Emily shares in today's discussion. I think it's because it's more about letting yourself do other things rather than just food blogging all the time. I just feel like there's this mentality out there right now that if you hit a block, you just have to push yourself and push harder. And that's how you get over things. You got to be productive every single minute of every day. And it's like hard to keep that up after a while. It's like I think you really can push yourself at times, but it's hard to do that over the long haul. And sometimes I just have this feeling like our highly creative selves are like little children, little gifted children. Children can be very gifted and creative. And sometimes when you push that little highly creative version of yourself too much, it's like they just throw this huge tantrum, or they just get really stubborn and they won't budge. They're just not going to move. I think if you're feeling like a funk or feeling stuck, that's like, your version of that tantrum. And I think it's just a sign that you're in this creative funk and you just got to find some creative ways to get out of it. If you push yourself too hard, maybe you get past this little tiny hurdle, but then you're going to be facing a bigger hurdle the next time. So Emily and I discussed this, and sometimes what we talked about is the best thing that you can do is just something entirely different. You need to give that inner creative of yours some space, some time to be playful. Maybe put on some fun music or light a candle, take an art class. I don't know, anything besides work, in quotes there. And so if you have little ones at home, go play with them. I mean, my goodness, that is a great way to connect with, your inner creative, is to play with the little geniuses that you have around your house. Or what if you went out and started an herb garden and get your hands in the dirt and just feel connected with the planet? And then think about it this way. Then when you go to shoot something, you're going to actually have herbs from your own garden for your food photography. Does that not just sound incredible? It's like we would have these inner geniuses. We could also have little inner Martha Stewarts too. So, like whatever it takes to make yourself feel more connected, more grounded, more, more connected with that inner genius, I guess is what I would say. So as you can tell, I am really excited about today's discussion. I just love this topic of getting yourself back on track and feeling enthused about the work that you're doing. And sometimes creative breaks are part of that. So I'm really excited to share with you. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's feature interview with Emily Caruso. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Emily Caruso. She's of the site Jelly Toast, and she's on the show today. Hey Emily, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Hi Marley, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. And we met quite a while ago. I don't remember exactly when, but we were in a similar group together that was formed by Lenny and Denise about food videos. So I feel like I've known you for a while, but we just haven't really had a chance to talk like this. So I'm really excited to talk with you today.
I know, me too. It's even been a while since we've met in our group, so
I know
it's very nice to catch up.
Yes, I know that that group was a really fun way of kind of learning to shoot video, and now you have just really taken off with it. I mean, I just remember your very first video that you shared that group was just amazing. So you have a natural talent for it, I think.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy it.
That's good. So before we get started, I want you to know that I Googled your name, and so I have to ask you, are you the Emily Caruso who is an American sport shooter?
No. In fact, I believe she is the one that has emilycaruso.com, so I can't get that.
What are the chances? That's kind of a unique name.
It is. And it's not even it's my married name too, so I didn't know anything about her going into it.
Well, at least she's a gold medalist, so that kind of,
exactly
raises the cloud of the name.
I'd rather share a name with someone cool like that than...
That's right. He's not like a serial killer or something, That would be terrible, wouldn't it? I hadn't even thought about that before. If you had the same name as some terrible person. Oh my goodness.
Sure make things interesting.
I guess it would, yeah. Okay, so we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, and I'm really looking forward to it. And but I thought it might help everybody if we could just take a step back and you could talk a little bit about why it is that you started your blog.
Yeah, well, I started my blog, I think it was over 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago. And I was staying home. I had been an art teacher, and then I had my son, so I was staying home with him. And then I had my daughter, and she was a couple years old. And I've always loved to cook, and I've always loved photography. In college, I was a photography major, and then I became an art teacher. So photography has always been something that I've been interested in. And then I know the summer, I think it was 2012, I got very interested in learning how to take food photos. I've always loved like food magazines and Martha Stewart and all that. And I just wanted to really teach myself how to take good pictures of food. So I started practicing with just the things I was making at home. And I thought, this is really fun. I think I could really enjoy doing this. So I thought starting a blog would be a good way to experiment with kind of learning more about food photography and, sharing a little bit of my cooking as well. And so it's kind of taken off from there.
Oh, that's great. So I just have to ask you right off the bat, I mean, what have you found is different about, you have a background in photography, but then you got into food photography. Was there something that surprised you that turned out to be more challenging than you thought it would be?
It's definitely all about lighting.
Yeah.
For me.
Yes.
But honestly, the thing that I like about food photography more than any other type of photography is that the food sits still.
I know.
You don't have to try to make it smile, and you don't have to try to make it pose well. I mean,
you don't have to wait for the right clouds to appear on the sun, on the sunset.
Exactly. There's low pressure. It's not someone's wedding.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, if you don't get this shot, like the cupcake's really not going to care. You can try again later or something. So I enjoyed the low pressure aspect of it, as well as it sort of fed into more like still life photography.
Yeah.
So, and that was really the kind of photography I liked. I've never really been into portrait photography or anything like that. Like I've tried it, but it's not for me.
So food is like the ultimate still life photography.
Exactly. Exactly. So yes, you're dealing with, food styling and food maybe not lasting. You have to make it look good for a period of time, but really it sits still, which is great.
Yeah. But then there is that lighting issue. And I think it's
Yes.
probably the thing that how do I say this? Like it's the least predictable and the most frustrating thing about food photography to me, at least.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I think even sometimes, we moved a year and a half ago, and at our old house, I knew I could set something up a certain way at a certain time of day. I could look outside and say, this is going to be a good day.
Yeah.
I've got it. And then after we moved, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out this whole new house. I don't know. Like, luckily, the room that's in our new house where my studio is, it's a great room, but it took a while to kind of readjust. I didn't realize how much I had gotten used to, like a comfort zone of my old house of like, well, this is where and how and when I can shoot for success. And now it was kind of relearning it all. So I've kind of caught back up now, but it's definitely different than it used to be.
It's true. Yesterday, I walked by the spot where we shoot is actually in our kitchen, and we have a southern exposure in our kitchen. So we kind of leave a table set up, to be completely honest. It's probably not a great thing to do, but oh well, whatever. We keep that table set up, and the light was coming through so perfectly, and I was like going, oh, I need to fix something really fast because it would look, it creates such a great shot. But I didn't.
That's totally true. And that's the thing, is that the days that the lighting is gorgeous, I have nothing to shoot.
I know.
And then the days that I have to shoot something, it's
like cloudy and
it's so overcast that everything's blue.
Yes.
It's just like, no, yeah.
It's like the headaches of being, of being a food photographer, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I guess in the grand scheme of things is pretty low. So
I know,
I really can't complain.
It's true. You have to kind of keep having a touch of reality and go, okay, wait a minute. This is a really cool problem to have.
Exactly.
Okay. So jelly toast, where does that come from?
This is so funny. Well, I don't know. It's funny because it's really not that funny.
That makes it even better.
So when I was starting my blog, I had an Etsy shop for a couple years before I started my blog. I would sell kind of sewn like fabric goods, blankets, stuffed animals, things like that I'd sewn. And the name of that shop was Jelly Toast. And so when it came to naming my blog, I could not think of anything better. I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do. And I thought, well, it has to do with food, so I guess it would work. But the reason I named my Etsy shop Jelly Toast is when my son was very little, he's 9 now, but when he was really little, one of his favorite breakfasts, it was toast with jelly, but he would just call it Jelly Toast or peanut butter toast or whatever. So, but that was his favorite, was Jelly Toast. And so I always thought that it was just like a funny little thing that we would talk about when I was making him breakfast. Yeah. So that was how the Etsy shop got named. And then when I stop my
Yes.
Etsy shop and wanted to start my food blog, I could not come up with another name that seemed right. And so
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep this going. Food in the title, it'll work. It's fine.
Yeah, and the good news is probably all the social media names were available as well, right?
Exactly. I kind of already had a little bit of although I did not do my social media names well. They're all a little different. So
There's no like guidebook that tells you how to do this. We were just figuring it all out as we went along.
if I told somebody now, I'd say make sure they're all the same, have it be the same as the title of your blog, and have your, you know, URL and everything be the same. But mine, sometimes it's Jelly Toast Blog places. My Instagram is M's Jelly Toast. I have no idea why, but that's what it is.
Now you couldn't change that now if
So-
you want. If you change that, would you have to start all over?
I don't think I would, but I get very bogged down with how many places that I would have to change the links to.
Oh,
And I'm
right.
part of so many sites like Pop Sugar and things that
Yes.
have and it just honestly, it overwhelms me to change it.
Yeah.
So I just leave it.
Yeah, and
So-
then if you're part of any of those networks where you,
Right.
you get sponsored posts from, they all have your Instagram feeds too, so you have to change all of those as well.
Right.
That would add up.
It would. And I just get a little overwhelmed with that kind of thing. So I thought, it's fine. Just leave it.
Yeah. So
good.
I think you touched on your interest in cooking. Is that something you were passionate about, or it just kind of developed at some point in your life?
I did. I remember actually I've always liked food, and I
Yeah.
actually grew up cooking. My mom is a very good cook,
Yeah?
but she doesn't love it. And she would tell you that today if you talk to her. But she's always a good cook. And I always used to tease her. I'm like, Mom, I don't know why you don't really like to cook very much, because you're good at it, But my dad didn't cook as much, but he really liked it. So I would kind of on the weekends cook with my dad growing up. And then when I got into high school, I became a little bit more interested in it. And then when I remember watching Rachel Ray's 30-minute meals with my mom after school when it first started, and I don't remember if it started when I was like late high school or early college. It might have been early college, but I lived at home during college. So I would watch that with my mom, and I could see that it was starting to get her excited, like, oh, hey, I can make this thing that looks pretty interesting in 30 minutes. I can do this. And so she and I started cooking more together then. And I've always been interested in it. I think I was the first person in my family to cook with like an actual head of garlic. I mean, like weird things like that. You grow up with like, well, this is the way we ate.
Yes.
And there was nothing wrong with it. It's just very different. And it was like, oh, they're calling for like a fresh clove of garlic.
Yes.
I'm going to figure that out. And, so it kind of started back in college, really. It's probably when I really first started cooking a lot. So when I got married, I cooked all the time. And my husband's a very good cook too, but he traveled a lot when we were first married. So I was cooking just for myself, but I was really good about actually cooking for myself and not just, picking up takeout all the time. So I think I just really got in the habit of cooking, and I like it. So I like food magazines and looking up recipes.
Yeah.
And so I've always been very interested in food.
Not just the photography, but the food too.
Right. And so that's why when they came together, I was like, oh, this is like a perfect little
like-
marriage of the things that I like.
The light shone down on you and you
Exactly.
you found your purpose.
It all worked out.
So
Exactly.
is your husband involved with the site at all?
He is very supportive, but no, not really.
Okay.
He's a very willing food tester, and he's always very good at talking me down if I get stressed out about stuff and get
Yeah.
overwhelmed. He is really good about sort of being like, okay, let's take a step back.
Yes.
Everything's going to be fine. Do this then, everything will be okay, and because really the way I run my site, I mean, I don't have an assistant, I don't have anybody else, it's all me. The only thing is I have one girl that I kind of have on retainer. If something breaks on my site, I email her in a panic, and then she usually fixes it. But other than that,
You don't do your own site
everything's-
design, do you?
No.
Okay.
Lindsay of Love and Olive Oil from Per Design, she designed it a little over about a year ago. I had it redesigned. But everything else, I mean, I don't have an assistant. I don't have somebody that does social media for me, which is why oftentimes there'll be like 3 days where I don't post on Facebook.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that's just the way I do it, which is maybe not the most efficient way to do things, but
Hey, works for you, right?
Yeah.
So how long, I'm just curious. So let me just ask this question first. When you started the blog, did you have aspirations that it would turn into your business, or was it mostly hobby?
It was mostly hobby
Yeah.
at first. My daughter was, let's see, it was 2012. It was the year my daughter turned 3 and my son was 5. So I definitely knew that I was going to go back to work once they were both in school full time. But I was a teacher before, so I kind of had in the back of my head, well, maybe I can do teaching or substitute teaching or something
Yeah.
when they go back. And I taught art part-time at the art museum here in Toledo, and I loved that. I did that for about 8 years, even when I wasn't teaching full-time. But then as the blog started to grow and I started to actually make like a little bit of money from it, it was kind of like, oh, well, maybe this is something that will
Yeah.
turn into, something else. So then I guess it was maybe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years, the year before my daughter was in kindergarten. She's in first grade now. The year before she was in kindergarten, I think I really kind of put myself to the test of, hey, let me see what I can do this year to make this work, because next year she'll be in kindergarten, school full time.
Yeah.
And I want to see what I can do to see if I can sort of not justify not going back to work, because I mean, I am working, but sort of be able
Right.
to say like, yes, this will be the
Financially.
job that I have.
Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of going back and getting a teaching job and things like that. So, and also I love it because it's kind of as much or as little as I want it to be.
Yeah.
So I'm still available to, I mean, I help out at my kids' school, and I take them to school every day and pick them up every day. So I kind of try to squeeze in all my work between about
Yes.
8 and about 2.
It's an advantage to have that time
It is.
restriction sometimes because it makes you get things done.
It does. And I have been much more efficient in the last 2 years than I think I ever was. I mean, I used to work on weekends and
Yep.
nights all night. And now my kids were also home with me, so it was harder to do things during the
Yeah.
day. So I did what I had to during the day, but then at night I'd be typing and editing, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of nice to not be doing that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So you blog for like 2 years, and that's the point that at least that's what I'm hearing. It sounds like you blog for 2 years, and then that's the point where you were like, okay, I think I can turn this into a business.
Right. It was the first year and a half to 2 years was definitely, I maybe started making a tiny little bit of money,
Yeah.
but not much. I think I started working with my first like big client maybe a year and a half after I started blogging, but it was just the one. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is, but what's funny is it started with a video. And
You started doing videos on your site. Okay.
I did. From the very first video I did, it was after I went to a conference and met Lenny and Denise, and then I
Yes.
joined the group, and then I made a video for one of the brands that was a sponsor, which, can I say the brand?
Sure.
Okay, it was McCormick.
Okay.
So they were a sponsor at a conference that I was at,
Was that blended?
and it was.
I was
Wait,
there too.
No. Yes. No, it was mixed.
Oh, mixed. That's right. I was there too.
Mixed, I know.
That's so funny.
Okay. But I don't think you were there the year I was there.
Oh, okay.
I was
Maybe
there
it
in
was the year after then. Yeah.
2013.
Okay.
I think you were maybe the year. It
2012.
was this.
Yeah.
I didn't join their video group the first year. I think I joined the second year,
Yeah. Okay.
because when I joined, it was already kind of established.
Ah.
But I made a video.
So
just
let me get this right.
for
Your very first
fun.
video was sponsored?
No, it wasn't. I
Okay.
took the products that I was given
Yep.
at the conference and just made a video with it. It wasn't sponsored. It was just a freebie. I mean,
Yeah.
I made it using, and then I emailed the girl that I had met from McCormick and just said, hey, I just made this video. It was really nice meeting you. Blah, blah, blah. This is a video that I made. And then they kind of came back to me and they said they really liked it. And then they asked, hey, would you be willing to do a post about, I think it was making snow ice cream. And it was one of the years of like the,
Yes.
the super cold winters a few winters ago. So my kids were home for like a whole month from school.
Yes.
So we did that. And again, it was not paid. They sent me some product, and again, I was very new and I had no problem doing that. And I think
Yeah.
that's a little bit, we can get into that.
Yeah.
But I did that sort of, in exchange for the product, and it was just a fun post. And then after that, they contacted me to sign on for like a year-long paid contract. So
Were you just jumping up and down, excited?
yeah, I mean, it was very exciting. So I thought, wow, I mean, I'd seen other people do this kind of thing, but I thought, wow, this is really, okay, well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of the beginning. And then it kind of snowballed a little bit here, a little bit there, getting in, meeting some girls that all worked for the same PR company that are really great. And they kind of would say, oh, well, you worked on us with this brand and we really liked you. So we have this other brand. Would you be interested in doing something with them too? Sure. And they're great. So it's kind of just been word of mouth and meeting people through other people.
And clearly you would say going to that conference helped you a lot, right? Because you met these people in
really
person.
Did.
Yeah.
It really did. And to be perfectly honest, that's the only food blog conference I've ever been to.
Really?
So I think I'm due to go again. I know, and I've been wanting to go to yours.
Yeah.
But I know the one year we were taking our kids to Disney during Chopped. So I thought,
And I think
go.
I think I saw online that you're headed to another one this year. Is that right?
I am. I'm actually going to be speaking at 2 in April.
Nice.
About video. So
Yes.
I guess I'll give my spin on, my personal viewpoint on video. So as everyone I'm sure has their own way that they like to do things, but I think it's always good to hear another perspective. So.
Well, I love this kind of like karmic sounding, experience where you made this statement. I'm going to see what can happen this year because I think I'd like to see if I could turn this into a business. And you go to this conference and you reach out to this brand, you take initiative and follow up, and then boom, you've got work coming your way. That's so cool.
Yeah, I was, it definitely took putting myself out there and working really hard and making the best content that I could, but I'm by far not the most talented food blogger out there. There are some incredibly talented people that are doing this, but I think it was a combination of I'm going to put myself out there, right place, right time a little bit too. So, I was definitely lucky and it lined up. So, and so far things are continuing to go really well. So
awesome.
We'll see what 2017 brings.
That's right. That's the thing. Sometimes you just don't really know, right?
I know, year to year.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like working with brands kind of helped you with your traffic, or did you see any kind of side benefits to like maybe increased social media following, things like that helped?
A little bit. I'll be honest with you, not a lot. I would say. I try to be very careful, and I think I've done a pretty good job of only working with brands that I would genuinely want to use or already use. I think in the past when I first started, I would pretty much just take whatever because they were few and far between. So it was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then as it got more, it was like, I need to be a little bit more
selective,
discerning. And, this brand might be perfectly great, but it really isn't anything that my family, like I would go to buy or eat or anything. So I've had to learn to say no, and like I can't do everything, and if it's just not going to be a good fit, in order to stay genuine,
you want to have that natural enthusiasm. Makes the project even better.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm in the middle right now of considering something that I think I'm going to end up turning down because really, ultimately, it's not. So I think I always put myself in the shoes of, okay, I have to write 500 words about this recipe and product. Do you think I can do that without, I can't do it, so I really shouldn't take this.
Yeah. If you can't come up with 500 words, that's a very good metric. I like that.
It's like, if this is going to take me like 4 hours to write this because I just can't come up with things to say, then it's not it. That's a sign.
Yeah.
I shouldn't move forward.
Yeah. So then you ended up taking this one project, and then it seems like it turned into, you started working with a lot of different brands, doing videos for a lot of different people. Is that right?
I did. And honestly, now so many people are doing video, and I think that's great. And that's honestly my one advice is that my blog's not that big. I mean, if you look at my site and my numbers, I mean, I do not have a humongous blog, but I've been doing video now for a while, and I'm comfortable doing video. Yeah. And I've worked now with enough brands that I'm very comfortable with talking about creating a video sort of together and collaborating with a brand to come up with a video that's going to feel right for both of us.
Yeah.
And I think that has been something that has been invaluable for me working with brands, because that's something that I've been able to offer that up until very recently, not a lot of people did.
Right.
So,
But I
think
mean, you
that's
walked
something
into
that's
this
been.
as a background as a teacher. I mean, was it sometimes overwhelming to be in negotiations with companies like McCormick's? I mean, I'm just curious how that felt for you.
It was definitely a learning experience. And I think every single year there's a few brands that I've worked with year after year. And kind of at the end of the year, I sort of said, okay, I need to make sure that next year I put this, and this in the contract, because I sort of learned
Yes.
my lesson
Yes.
that wasn't, you know,
Two
for
edits, not
instance,
five. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And spell those things out, because
Yes.
I didn't know enough to put that in, and they didn't really even know enough. And it wasn't that they're trying to take advantage. I never got that impression.
Yeah.
It was a new thing for
Yeah.
both sides. So kind of trying to navigate that and figure that out as I went. But I feel like I have learned a lot about working with brands on video, because it's more brands are probably working on video, so it's a little bit maybe easier, but also things to sort of watch out for and things to make sure I spell out of this many edits, no reshoots.
Yes.
So, oftentimes it takes a pre-planning call to make sure that you're on the same page before you shoot, because especially, I mean, food videos, to reshoot one clip
Oh,
is
yes.
sometimes almost you need to reshoot the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I've been in that boat before early on, that I was like, ooh, this is a lesson learned. We
Yes.
need to
Because,
make sure we are on the same page so that
yes.
this requires no reshoots.
And if people
And
are listening
then,
that haven't done video, they may not realize it's not the same. It's not the same as like inserting one little clip, because
right.
the light could be totally different. There's just so many things that could be in play, and the angle could be completely different as well. And it
I mean,
just
even
won't
things down
flow.
to your nail polish needs to look the same. You
Yes,
change your nail
exactly.
polish color or something, that's going to stand out. you know, Stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there has to be a continuity, and it's definitely something that I've learned a lot about, that even just things to sort of look for, like, and I have had brands, we negotiate, this is how much for video, and then it gets to planning the video, and they want to put like 5 recipes in a video, and that's great. There's some really great videos that have 5 ways to do this, and I've done
Yeah.
those, and they're a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
But it's almost like shooting 5 different videos.
Right.
So it's something to, again, watch out for. It's totally fine to do. It's just something to be aware of.
Right.
That know what you are willing to do for a certain amount of money.
Yes.
Shooting one video, but maybe has a half a dozen recipes, might take you almost 5, 6 times as long to shoot that video. So
And so you want to be compensated. I mean, your time is worth that.
exactly.
So did you ever like take on so many projects that you were ever feeling overwhelmed or, burned out?
Oh my gosh, yes. Way too much. Way too much. I have a hard time saying no, and not in that I've gotten better at saying no to kind of collaborations that it's like, this just isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
But it is a problem then when I get asked to do a lot of things that are genuinely a good fit, or I
Yeah.
have friends that want to do projects together, and it's like I just want to be able to do it all, because it's like, oh no, that sounds great, and this sounds great, and oh yeah, I'd love to do this with you, and then I think, oh wait a minute, there's only so many hours in the day, and something's going to get dropped by the wayside.
This is the kind of work that feels a little bit like freelance work, so that,
Right.
if you're afraid if you say no, that the spigot might turn off.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely, but then you play with that double-edged sword. If
I
you
know.
take it all on and then the quality goes down,
Yeah.
that could also be a problem. So
I
people might stop asking you if they see that, your standard of quality is dropping.
It's just turning
So
it out, right?
it is. It's hard. It's a hard balance. It is definitely a hard balance to sort of stay interested and passionate and excited about the creativity aspect of it,
Yes.
because I think being creative on demand is very difficult. And if you don't spend enough time to feed your creativity and it just keeps getting pulled. I mean, I feel like I've heard you and Kara talk about stuff like this before on your fry chats. You will get drained and then there's nothing else to pull from. And
Yeah.
I've definitely been there.
It's
So,
really tough. I mean, you and I were talking about this before I hit the record button, but there's this like there's like this pull between what I call systemization versus creativity. So I love to create systems out of things. So I'm constantly like thinking, okay, how can I streamline this? Sean, he and I work together on this. So on the blog and videos and in the photography. So we're constantly looking at ways to like systematize things, but then you can over systematize and like suck all the creativity out of, anything original out of the work that you're doing. So it's tough.
It is. And you have that balance of, again, to do it in a way that can be efficient and it's going to work. And it's also then going to be branded you.
Right.
And which I think is a great thing. I think there's some people out there, there's a few people that are just really good about their content is really branded. You see something and it's so-and-so. And I think I feel like I struggle with that a little bit. That's not something because it's not something I've ever been really good at because I feel like my attention span pops around and now I want to do this and now I want to do this. But you want to kind of have that branding that way that you can create content in an efficient way, but then also still be trying to push yourself to try new things and experiment with new things. And it's hard to find the time to do both.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah. So what do you do when you're feeling in a bit of a rut and you want to kind of boost your creativity, or do you have some things that you do?
I do. One of the things I like to do is food magazines. I love looking at food magazines.
Yes.
And in fact, I made a video a couple months ago. You can find it on my YouTube, but about my favorite food magazines. And they're not just the regular, like I love Bon Appetit, I love Food and Wine. Those are fantastic. But there are a couple other ones that are a little bit off the beaten path.
Donna Hay,
but
do you like
have
hers?
some absolutely, yes. Donna Hay. I have a digital subscription to Donna Hay, and I am obsessed. I love it.
I just, the music pops on.
so-
I'm just in love with it. Yeah.
I know. It's so the little like animations. And do you have there's another one called Gourmet Traveler. Do you have that one?
is
It's
that
another
good?
Australian. Yes. It's really it's another Australian magazine. I have that on my iPad too. I love those two. And then there's a few other ones that tend to come out. There's two of them, and I get them mixed up. One's called Bake and one is called Sift.
Okay.
And they're a little bit more expensive, but they're almost like a small cookbook kind of thing. There's very few ads in them too, so you just page after page is just beautiful photography. So I think sometimes looking at magazines and then you're not online and clicking around and getting inundated with pop-ups and stuff like that, sort of stepping away a little bit.
Yes.
That's something that I like to do when I'm finding myself tapped for inspiration.
I like to encourage people, if they don't feel like they can afford a subscription to something like these, even though I think annual subscriptions are pretty reasonable nowadays, but one idea is like I go up to the library sometimes and I'll just take an hour or two and just sit, and they have all those magazines there and you can just sit and read them for free.
And I do that with cookbooks too. I did the KonMari clean out tidying a couple years ago.
Oh my
and I got
God,
rid of
yes.
so many cookbooks because
Yes, we do too.
I didn't use them. Like I would cook a couple things out of them and they were beautiful, but they were just taking up space. So I found I like to now go to library and get cookbooks from the library.
Oh, yes.
I
You'll
do
get
that
so
all the
many
time.
inspirational ideas. Like there are some cookbooks. I got one on Japanese noodles of all things, and I just loved it. It
Ooh.
was a great recipes and really creative the way he talked about it. I loved it. Yeah.
And that is a nice thing, like you said, about budget, is that you don't necessarily have to
Yep.
spend a lot of money to experience a lot of these things and create content. I mean, if you look at the Donna Hay photos,
Yeah.
they're pretty, I mean, she has some beautiful props, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
And I know if you try to find some of these little pans and things that she has, they're expensive, but yet at the same time, the photos in that magazine are not overly propped
No,
out.
they're
They're just
not.
a couple simple things,
Yes.
beautiful light, beautiful food styling, and
true.
that's it. So I like to look through magazines. That's something that I often do. And then sometimes I honestly just like to do stuff that's completely different than food photography.
Really?
So sometimes I've been trying to get through and I've been running out of time, but I've been working on like hand lettering, and I know it sounds like a crazy thing, but I feel like I've completely lost some fine motor skills with all the computer and digital stuff going on. I feel like I have, and it's someone you used to draw and things all the time. That panics me a little bit because I think, oh my gosh, I feel like I don't know how to do that anymore. So I've been working on learning like calligraphy and I just got this really cool new chalk lettering handbook. So
Yes.
things like that are still creative.
Right.
And in a way, in my head, I feel like, oh, down the road, I would really love to merge this
Yeah.
with, like, ultimately have it wrap back around to be related to my blog and videos or photography, but I'm not quite there yet. I think just anything, even just taking time to do something creative that's totally different, because you might find a little bit of inspiration that you can take back to your blog or your photos that maybe you'll be surprised at.
I talked with Aisha Bursell. She was on the podcast a few months ago, and she talked about that very thing, that she thinks people should draw a little bit every day. And even if it's just a stick figure doing something or whatever, it's just something about the hand drawing on the page. I mean, we've been doing that, as humans for millions of years. So I think to continue that is really, there's got to be something there. I think they've got studies that have shown that there's something to that. There's a connection there.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. And I definitely feel like it's something that I'm worried about losing, just because I feel like I'm always on my computer or my phone, and I don't have a lot of reason. I mean, I write notes to my kids' teachers, and I feel like I have a hand cramp after 2 sentences. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So, I mean, it's definitely, like, I've really got to get myself back into, doing things by hand. So, and I would, again, ultimately love to be able to bring that sort of fine art element into my photos and my blog in a way that I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I have all these ideas,
But see, I think that's actually perfect. You don't really know where it's going. I think, so I take a spin class on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and today, well, it's just a video, but we're in Italy. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. And so the teacher, the voice came over the video and basically said, don't look at the end of the pathway. Look at the road. It was a particularly hard part of the class, so we were really working hard. And don't look at the end of the hill. Look at the 10 feet in front of you on the path, because sometimes you get overwhelmed by thinking, I got to get to that top of that hill. And I think there's some truth to that. I think sometimes we want to always know where we're going, but I think if there's a little bit of curiosity and not exactly knowing, I don't know, it just adds to the creativity of things.
I love that, actually.
I think I like it too.
I do. That's great, because, I completely relate to that. I think it can be very overwhelming.
Yep.
If you're standing in one spot and you're trying to figure out the end point, and if you can't figure it out, it's scary.
Yes.
You think, well, I don't need to figure out the end point yet. Let's just make decisions as you go along and take one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to have some ideas.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. But don't necessarily get yourself stressed out about figuring out how it's all going to come together.
Exactly. And if the one thing I think that should be the priority is that if you feel the joy, and not just like joy with the lowercase j, but like an uppercase, all caps joy, by doing this hand lettering, then I think that's really cool. And continuing with that, I don't know, like that's really important.
Yeah. I've always loved drawing and things like that. I mean, my background is in art, but I just losing it almost in the last X number of years, I think, when everything has become so digital, and which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love that. Yeah. But it's finding time and sort of even going out of my way to schedule, and not feeling guilty about it. So we're saying, this is going to be my hour that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to draw, and I'm going to do some hand lettering, and it's not going to be a waste of time. This is a good thing. Yeah. And not feel guilty about that too.
I love that. And that's just so true. I interviewed somebody, I actually have a podcast on my Namely Marley blog, and I interviewed, and her name is Kathy, and I don't remember her last name, but her point was, she was talking about helping people write books, because I'm actually working on a novel. And so I was really intrigued to talk with her about her novel writing process. And she basically said that we forget the joy of, or the purpose of dawdling, I guess is the word I would use here, that if we don't give ourselves permission to do it, then it's procrastination. So if you're watching a cat video, or if you're doing something that, it's just procrastination. You're keeping yourself from what you should be doing. But if you give yourself that time and say, I'm going to take this hour and I'm going to draw, and then it becomes purposeful, and it's actually, feeds your creativity.
That's great.
I know.
I really, yep. And then now I'm going to, so I know after we're done talking, I'm going to go and do some drawing.
Yeah, I am too, actually, now that you say that. Because you know what? It's interesting that we're talking about this because I spent the day yesterday in that mindset of feeling like I wasn't being productive enough. And I was just really being really hard on myself. Like, oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I should be doing more. And when I look back on the day, I actually did a lot. But I'm just I'm just so hard on myself sometimes. So hearing you say this makes me feel more inspired because I'm actually more inspired by food blogging when I feel like it's more creative and more physical, even moving around, doing things.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that I have noticed the posts that I will get the most kind of feedback and engagement and things on are the ones that I'm genuinely really excited about doing.
Yeah.
And whether it's a recipe post or just another random, I do sometimes like these Thursday thought posts and just, fun stuff that isn't necessarily a recipe, which I actually really enjoy doing those kind of things.
Really?
And I think sometimes I get afraid to do them because I think, oh, well, is everyone expecting a recipe every time, And it's like, well, you know what? I started this not doing a recipe every time. I started this so I need to remember that. And I need to remember that there is me in this, and I can't lose that because that's what makes, and everybody's blogs that same way, is that we shouldn't try to be like everybody else's. Let your own bit of yourself shine through because that's what's going to make your blog stand out from somebody else's. And I think sort of being able to go back and tap into these other passions and interests that we have and letting those kind of seep in, it's a good idea. And I feel like I'm always want to do that.
I love that. I love the idea of, really, it's so easy to get lost for me in the recipes because what we're talking about, I can create systems around that and I know what to do and how to say and what, there's a photo that's going to be a part of it. But when I really feel inspired to do those kinds of blog posts like you're talking about, but I immediately start to feel overwhelmed. Like, okay, what would the photo have to be for it? And how would I do that? And I don't know, I let myself get overwhelmed, but I love it. I think it's a great idea to keep doing that.
I agree. For this year, I think, this January I feel is always a kind of an unusual month, especially for bloggers or probably anybody that does freelance work, is that it's a little bit of an unknown, at least for me. I know going into the year, it's, okay, I kind of saw how last year ended, which was good.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of the year, it's like, okay, well, what's this year going to bring? And you kind of try to start piecing things together and maybe contracts that you have, and then sort of see, okay, do I want to try to push to get more of that? Or do I want to embrace some of this, quote, free time to try some of these things that keep getting pushed to the back burner because, a paid job comes up or a project with a friend comes up or something that, I struggle with that because I have these things that, you want to do and they tend to be the first thing that gets bumped. So this year I'm gonna maybe try to save some of that save some of that free time and do some of these things that I keep thinking about.
I love it. I feel inspired just talking with you because I feel the same way. I kind of put myself on the back burner and, what's wrong with if you have a free hour not working and going and going for a walk or, doing lettering or working on a novel or whatever you have, just keep those passion projects going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so inspired.
I know you like to go on your morning walks.
What's that?
I was going to say, you like to go on your morning walks. I've heard you talk about it and things, but even like taking photos when you're out walking, maybe those are the photos that you put in a post that's just a chatting post, So
I got you. So there you go. So your Thursday thoughts or, those kinds of, I think I've heard people that do Wednesday post or whatever it is that you do, mm-hmm. you can actually take photos from your real life adventures. That's pretty cool. I love that. It's like, I know it's not a new idea. People have been doing that, but it's like something I've forgotten about. So it's cool. Very good. Yeah. Okay. One last question before we move on to the end of the interview. But what advice would you be giving to somebody right now who is new to this, that they're maybe thinking about starting a food blog? What would you say to them today?
All right. So if someone was starting a food blog now, I think I would tell them to really think about why that idea popped into their head. Maybe it's their love of food, their love of photography. Maybe they're just hoping to start a business and keep that in the forefront of their mind as they're making decisions. So if it's their love of food, maybe, learn the photography part, but let that passion of food show through with the creativity of the recipes and the writing. If it's the photography, really push yourself to learn the photography end of things. And because I think the showcasing the part that you're truly passionate about will be what makes your blog stand out. And don't worry about trying to make it fit a formula that you see everybody else doing, because everybody else is already doing that. So maybe you find your way and your voice, because some of my favorite blogs are completely different from one another, but it's the passion that shows through the people that are writing or photographing that kind of what continues to make me go back to them over and over again. So I say don't lose sight of what you are passionate about.
Ah, that's great advice and perfect note to end on. So let's move on to, I love to ask these kind of fun questions at the end of the interview,
Okay.
So what's one food item you can't live without?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Does that count?
Hey, that works.
Okay.
You drink it black or what do you do?
Black most of the time, sometimes with milk, but
Yes.
mostly black. Sometimes I'll do like a foamed milk on the top, which is fun if I'm feeling fancy.
So I'm just curious, you walk into Starbucks and you order black coffee. I've never seen anybody do that.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
Really?
There's a Starbucks in my Kroger that I shop at, and the girl knows when I walk in.
She's like, oh, black coffee.
Like
foamed
grande dark roast. That's what I like.
That's really cool. You save a lot of money that way, right? Not ordering
It's a lot cheaper.
Uh-huh. Very cool. And do you drink it all day long? I mean, I always admire people who can have caffeine all day, but that's not me.
I do. It's kind of a problem. I've been trying to be better about it, just because I know, like, I will make myself drink a big glass of water between, like, if I just had a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
I make myself have a glass of water before I make another cup of coffee.
I have read that there are people who just metabolize caffeine better than others. So
It never seems to affect me at night. I
good.
sleep perfectly fine, but I know people that can't drink caffeine any time of the day because it'll affect their sleep, even if they drink it in the morning. So
That's a bummer, huh?
and then I feel bad for them.
I bet you do. Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
Probably the podcast app. I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
I listen to podcasts all the time.
Okay,
I
so
do.
of course, Chopped podcast aside, which are your favorite podcasts?
Of course. Okay, I have two right now that I'm loving. Besides Chopped, obviously, I do genuinely love. I listen to your podcast all the time. One of them is called Spontaneation,
Ooh.
and it's a comedy podcast. And it's there's a comedian, Paul F. Tompkins, who I love him. He's so funny, and it's basically an improv podcast, and it's just makes me laugh out loud. It's so funny.
Ah, sounds great.
So that one. And then there's another one, which is kind of crazy, but it's called My Favorite Murder. It's like a true.
Oh my God, what is that about?
And it sounds terrible. It sounds really terrible, but it's really great. And it's these two girls, and it's like a true crime podcast, basically. But they're kind of funny and silly, but not about the crimes that they're talking about, just sort of the way they kind of approach the whole thing. But it's very entertaining if you're into that kind of thing. If you're not into that kind of thing, I would not suggest it. So those are my two favorite.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to check those out. I'm a podcast addict too, so I can get a little carried away with the health focused ones. So I finding one that has some good humor is nice.
I do. And honestly, sometimes I just need, like, the Spontaneation one. I can just listen to that, and sometimes I need to not think about stuff that I will get overwhelmed with. And I think I just need something light and funny and silly, and that's exactly what that is.
Right.
So
I was going to say, and no murder involved, but I guess that way.
yes.
Like sometimes
yeah. If you're not into true crime, listen to Spontaneation. It's just silly.
Yeah, that's good.
If you're into the true crime podcast, definitely check out My Favorite Murder.
Cool. I love it. Okay, so do you have any time for TV at all? And if you do, what's your favorite show?
I do sometimes, and I actually, right now, I am binge watching Gilmore Girls because I did not watch it. And I don't know how I missed the show, but my sister-in-law let me borrow all of her DVDs.
Nice.
So I'm currently almost through season 2, and I'm obsessed with it. So really enjoying Gilmore Girls.
It is a great show. The writers on there are so clever. I mean, I just can't get over all the references. Yeah, it's amazing.
I kind of want to move to Stars Hollow and just be there.
Yes. I think I felt an affinity for those two because I was a single mom with my daughter. So it was just the two of us for so long. Yeah. And I named my daughter after me. So that's kind of how that show, Girls goes as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're both Lorelai awesome. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
But I mean, Addie, it's our middle name. So my middle name is Adele and her middle name is Adele as well. And she ends up going by Addie. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
I know. And that show is just fun. And I don't know.
I love them.
It is lighthearted and yeah. But there's some deep subjects they go into from time to time.
Yeah. So you definitely get to like sink into some of these really just fun characters and their relationships. But yet it's just a feel good kind of like, oh, it's kind of hard not to be just feeling happy when you're watching this show. So, and I think sometimes I just need that.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing too heavy.
Right.
So
there's a lot of heavy right now. So I think having something that's really lighthearted is nice. Okay, so
I agree.
Emily, we have to go there. How do people find you online?
Okay. They can find me on my blog, which is jellytoastblog.com. And I'm also on Instagram at emsjellytoast. I have YouTube channel. You can check me out. I've been doing some vlogs lately, which are fun and just sort of behind the scenes of like some of my video making and some video tips and studio tours and stuff like that. So they can find me there too.
Yeah, your studio tour is definitely, in fact, I'll leave a link in the show notes page. People have to go to that. It's very nice. Okay. Emily, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a wonderful time.
Oh, thanks so much, Marley. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks to Emily Caruso for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to go to choppedpodcast.com to learn more about today's show, and you can sign up for the Chopped newsletter as well. And that's where you'll learn more about the latest things going on with food blogging. Thank you so much for your support of this show. It really means a lot. If you'd really like to make me smile, just head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And I might even do a backflip if you would share about this podcast on social media or even your own blog. Everything you do makes a difference, and I say a word of gratitude for you all. You inspire me, and I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to you as well. Now go forth and be your best you.